26 in New York's Game 2 win. It's been all Nets so far in their 2-0 start against the Celtics. Kevin Durant and his superstar mates dominated in Brooklyn, but the series moves to Boston tonight. And later, the Mavericks have their first 2-0 lead in a series in 10 years, and they return home tonight, thinking potential sweep over the ever-puzzling LA Clippers. All sorts of interesting storylines as we get into Memorial Day weekend. Those 3 Game 3s will get it started tonight, and that gets us started here on Playoff Central Live, presented by State Farm. Glad you could be with us here on a Friday night. I'm Matt Weiner. We've got a big lineup. Going with a big lineup tonight. Carlos Boozer, Ryan Hollins right there. Guys, you got a particular series you're looking forward to tonight?
I think the Knicks and the Hawks are the series. I think that's a series that could go 7. Obviously, moving back to Atlanta tonight, looking to see Atlanta take a little bit of a lead and go up 2-1.
Oh, man, Luka versus the Clippers, man. That has box office action written all over it, man. I can't wait to see what comes next. Is Luka, we know he's the real deal, but how are the Clippers going to play him in a must-win game?
What are they going to do with him? That's one of the questions to be answered tonight. We've got lots to get to, including the Nets, who are so far living up to the very high expectations of them when their big 3 got together. After some early Game 1 nerves, it's been all Brooklyn through 2 games with the Celtics. Game 2, the Nets shot 52%, led by 27 through 3. No Nets starter played even 30 minutes of that game. The venue shifts tonight to Boston, which is where we find Jared Greenberg for a look ahead to tonight's Game 3. Hey, Jared.
Hey, Matt. For the most part, in week 1 of the NBA playoffs, home court advantage has made a significant return, with most saying that it's had a positive impact with growing crowds throughout NBA arenas. However, as we know, there have been a few incidents that have been negative, with unruly fans being tossed out of arenas in New York City, in Philadelphia, and in Utah. And Kyrie Irving brought his concerns to this series here in Boston as he makes his return for the first time at TD Garden with fans, as he talked after the Game 2 victory that he hoped that there was no hints of subtle racism from fans here in Boston. His head coach, Steve Nash, felt confident that no matter what does or does not happen, Kyrie will handle it just fine.
Guys, he's an all-world basketball player. I think he's quite comfortable in hostile environments. I'm sure that he'll relish the opportunity. You know, there is a line, but crossed or not, Kai can handle that.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of it. And it's kind of sad and sickening because, even though it's an opposing team, we have guys on your home team, that you're saying these racial slurs and you expect us to go out here and play for you. It's tough, but like I said, we just really want everybody to be respected.
There's certain cities that you can expect some racial slurs might be used around the third quarter when someone has enough beers and they know that they're far enough from us where we can't do nothing to them. There's always a fine line of when it becomes too much. When you start, using racial slurs or talking about someone's kids, then I think it's going too far. I dare spit on me. I'll follow you right to your house.
Earlier today, as he has had strong words. Tristan Thompson with very strong words there, as he has had strong words throughout the week leading up to Game 3. Now, remember, the crowd is going to be a factor here no matter what happens with Kyrie or not. That is because the ordinance to have just 25% crowd capacity in the state of Massachusetts won't be lifted until midnight tonight, which means the Celtics will only have about 4,700 fans in attendance. For Sunday's Game 4, the ordinance will have been lifted, and they will be able to have better than 19,000 screaming fans here for Memorial Day weekend on Sunday. So, Matt, no matter what happens, it certainly will be a disadvantage for the Celtics not to have a full crowd, similar to the Nets, who had 80% crowd in Games 1 and 2.
Yeah, and the league was probably unlikely to grant a petition for a 12:15 a.m. tip time tonight for Game 3. As for the basketball part of it, the Celtics have so far appeared overmatched in this series, if we're being honest. And to make things worse, Jason Tatum had to leave the game the other night after getting poked in the eye, and Kemba Walker's dealing with a knee injury. How healthy are the C's going into Game 3 tonight?
Yeah, Kemba Walker was listed as questionable. Then this afternoon, the team announced he will indeed play tonight. Jason Tatum was never put on the injury report despite getting poked in the eye by Kevin Durant in Game 2. He said he is good to go. We don't expect him to have any vision issues tonight inside the arena. As far as the Nets, though, they have lost one crucial piece to their championship aspirations, and that is Jeff Green. He's dealing with a foot injury that'll have him out likely for the rest of this series. The Nets say Green will be reevaluated in 10 days. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if the Nets were to move on to the next round and their likely opponent be Milwaukee, they will need a guy like Jeff Green to help contain the likes of Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Absolutely, and Nets fans are perfectly happy with you getting ahead of this series the way things have gone so far. We'll see how it goes tonight in Game 3. Jared Greenberg with us from Boston. All right, thanks much.
Thank you, Matt.
Jeff Green, by the way, has been very good for Brooklyn so far. How do you make what do you make of the first two games of this series? You know, Brooklyn was a little shaky maybe in the first half of Game 1, and they talked about, you know, the nerves in the first playoff games as a trio and all that. Since then, it's been pretty lopsided.
I think they answered a lot of questions that we held all season. You know, chemistry, their starting lineup, their guys had not played together. So having an opportunity to get on the floor, and one of the staples, another question mark, was their defense. They had a defensive presence. We know how prolific those guys are individually, but would they come together and can they defend? And they're looking great against Boston so far.
They look terrific. I think it's early, really early, but they're playing so well. You see, obviously, Joe Harris has 25 points in 29 minutes because all the attention is going to the big three. But he's stepping up and he's getting open shots and he's knocking his shots down. That translates. So, like you said, to your point, our questions were about their defense. They're doing a great job to a C's team that is a little shorthanded. There's no Jaylen Brown there. That 25 points is missing.
Hey, Boo, real quick, I love that KD is pushing the culture of sharing the basketball. Everyone, every man for themselves. He can score anytime he touches it, but you see him feeding Joe Harris continually over and over again, man.
Yep, you've got superstars making the right plays in terms of basketball plays so far in this series when they're together. And if you're a shooter, there's no better job in the world than the one that Joe Harris has right now. He led the league in three-point shooting as it was, tied a franchise playoff record with 7 made threes in Game 2. And look at the impact of the superstars so far as you see Harris doing his thing. Through 2 games, Kevin Durant plus 27, Harden plus 33, Kyrie plus 35. As billed so far, this Brooklyn team, do they look like the team to beat in the East?
They look great. I mean, the only thing you may say, and Ryan, you correct me if I'm wrong, is they may be a little small. I do think they're very versatile, especially with Jeff Green, with Blake Griffin.
The
in there.
Embiid question.
Exactly, right, exactly. How do you handle a guy like Embiid who can score from all over the court? Do they have a guy? Do they do it by committee? Do they just double team and make Ben Simmons score? But other than that, they look great.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, like you said, you know, that small lineup is tough, missing Jeff Green, but the ultimate thing is they can, you know, value getting him healthy right now. But are they going to, like you said, against Giannis, against Embiid? But honestly, their offensive firepower is scary. I thought they could have scored 170, 150. They took their foot off the pedal. But Boston has looked incredibly impressive. But we know this isn't Boston. The Nets have looked impressive. We know this isn't Boston's best team, so it is still kind of hard to judge what they can be.
Well, and even on the defensive end of the floor, which, you know, they haven't been very good most of the year, Durant got rave reviews for his work on Jason Tatum in Game 2. They don't need to be an elite defensive team, but if they can get a handful of stops when they need them, going to be awfully tough to beat in the East. We'll shift our sights to Dallas next, where the Mavericks have a chance on their home floor to put a vice grip on their series with the Clips.
And let's roll that footage and get it started on a Friday, because it's time to get you paid. The beer. KD and Kyrie, they notoriously do it BIG. They are up 2-0 against the Nets. In Beantown, that's where they'll play tonight. We'll show you how to make some bread. And right here, he's a basketball prodigy. His name is Luka, and he keeps it thorough. 35, 8, and 9. Up 2 games and nothing against the Clippers. How will they slow him down? And he's cooler than a polar bear's toenails. He is Trey TL. Ice Trey's delivered 30 or more in each of the 2 games. Will he get 30 in this one? We'll show you. The Knicks host the Hawks. Let's get this money.
Always be ready, be prepared to make your move. Gonna rise up with a flow hard, and I'ma take what's mine.
And I said the Knicks host the Hawks. It's actually the Hawks hosting the Knicks. It will be a full packed house at the Highlight Factory. You got the Nets, you got the C's, and of course, the Mavs and the Clippers. And with that being said, Gaming fans, what's good? You are now rocking with the best. Ro Parrish here in Studio V, and it is NBA Bet presented by BetMGM, and we are going to get you right and get you paid on this Friday. So with that being said, I have to welcome in my esteemed colleagues. First off, Tim Doyle, CBS Sports AQ, Chris Raybon from the Action Network, and covering all things NBA, Vince Goodwill, senior writer for Yahoo Sports. Like I said, it's Friday. It's a payday. Gentlemen, good to see you. You look good, and I know you're feeling good. Now it's time to get some people paid. Let's go ahead and show them how we're getting started with the Nets and the Boston Celtics. Game threes galore on your screen. We know the C's are hosting the Nets. They're down 0-2. That big three, they have been outstanding. They give you 70 points per game alone, and they are favored to win game three. So Vince, for obvious reasons, we know that they're favored. However, what storyline should we be focused on in game three?
Well, if we all remember correctly, from just a few weeks ago, we had a lot of concerns about James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant playing together. And James Harden was the biggest question mark because of that hamstring injury. Well, he looks mighty good, and I expect Kyrie Irving to be the target of some Boston anger tonight. So I think that James Harden is going to be the guy who may give you a 40 ball because he's been quiet. He's dished out A+ assists. This would be the game for he or Kevin Durant to take over, but I really think it's going to be the game for Harden just because people are not paying that much attention to him, at least not from the Boston side.
No, they're not. 27-7. His number's a little bit down from his in-season averages. Now I bring in Tim and Chris. So looking at game three, Tim, starting with you, what do you see?
Yeah, I wonder what Jason Tatum sees because LeBron said against Golden State when he made the big three, he was seeing big hoops, 3 different ones, all right? And it was hit the one in the middle. He did that, make it a game-winning shot, but Tatum's going to give it a go. And he was so good in the play-in tournament where he had a 50-burger against the Wizards. What has happened so far? Obviously, he got hit in game number 2, but in 2 games against Brooklyn, he's only total 31 points. Here's the deal. I think Boston's going to come out with energy. I think they got enthusiasm. And I think they play a very competitive game. But Chris, getting 8 points at home, I'm going to take all those points.
I don't know, Tim. I might take them in the first half. You usually see teams going down 0-2 and coming home, play with energy in the first half. As you mentioned, that's a profitable trend. However, another trend, remember when we saw Boston just blow out Washington in the play-in? 79 combined points for Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker. In the first 2 games, 31.5 combined points. That's not going to get it done for Boston. Both of those guys, it was questionable if they were going to go, and Kemba's on the injury report. I'm taking Brooklyn for the game, maybe Boston first half, Ropey.
Well, the C's trending downward. They lost 7 of 9 dating back to the regular season. How will it end? That's a great question. So I pose that question with you, starting with Chris. The series as a whole, do we see the sweep happening?
I like those odds at -150. Listen, it's going to be tough for Boston. They haven't won a quarter with their starters in there since the second of the first game. So when you start to see a team take over, win quarter by quarter by quarter, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I have a hard time, Chris, seeing Boston winning. I do think that they have a massive edge with the points in game number 3, and I do think that there's going to be a certain energy there. Vince talked about it. See that guy right there, Kyrie Irving? I don't think too many people in Boston are going to be rooting for him in this game. There might be a few random Nets fans that makes the trek up to Boston. But remember the commercial? Number in the rafters and stuff after 1 year? He's like, yeah, I'm out of here. So, yeah, I don't think the fans are going to be too excited for Kyrie. But this series is best described, as Mr. T said in Rocky 3, as Clubber Lang. Pain. And I think there's going to be a lot of pain inflicted on the Celtics. So I love the Nets to sweep the series.
Interesting. We'll see what happens with that one. So from Boston, the city where Mark Wahlberg, once known as Marky Mark, we go down south. That's where the series shifts. We have the Hawks and we have the Knicks. The 4-5 matchup has been thoroughly entertaining, and now they head to ATL, the home of Ludacris and company. A full house is expected in the Highlight Factory. As I said, the series is tied. Vince, the Hawks are the favorite. What is the key to Game 3?
Well, the key for me is trying to figure out if there's a plane that got Julius Randle from New York to Atlanta, because when you're shooting 28% from 3 or 28% from the field and 30% from 3, that means you haven't shown up, and you can't depend on Derrick Rose or Alec Burks or anybody else or the New York crowd to help you tonight in their Highlight Factory. He's the most improved player. He made my All-NBA 13 ballot. It's time that he show up. If not, they could wind up very well being down 3-1 when this series goes back to New York.
The most improved player hasn't played well in the playoffs so far, 15 points per game. Chris, coming to you, looking at game 3, what do you see?
Well, I'm from the BX, but I can't lie, Ropey. I'm a little worried about the Knicks. The Hawks only shot 31% over the first 2 games, but they got the split. That doesn't bode well for them coming back home, where we know role players tend to shoot better, Tim.
Yeah, I like the Hawks in this game. I feel comfortable laying the points. They were the better team for the first half of that game, and then it was just all the Knicks. There's an electricity there in the Garden. Not going to be the same way in Atlanta. You're going to be playing on Trey's home floor, and Trey's in a rhythm right now. That scares me. The difference between the two teams, the Hawks have a closer. The Knicks, we thought Julius Randle was going to be their closer. Like Vince said, he needs to play much better in this spot.
Trey might be young, but he's ready, averaging over 30 points per game. Timmy, prediction, how many games?
I think this goes 6. I do think the Knicks go out and get one, but give me plus 145, Chris. I like the Hawks in this series.
Yeah, I'm going 5 games. I think the Hawks get in a rhythm and take it in 5. And I really like those odds at plus 290 compared to plus 145 for 6 or plus 150 for 7.
Nice. So Clippers, Mavs spread a little closer than some might have expected. The Mavs still favored. They have the Clips number. They've only lost them 1 time, 4 victories so far, including the regular season. And the Clippers have had no answer for Luka. Vince, what's going to happen in game 3?
Be careful what you wish for. The Clippers asked for this. And what they didn't ask for was Tim Hardaway shooting 65% from 3, 63% from the field. You can't stop Luka, but you can stop the secondary scores. That might be the only chance the Clippers have in shortening or lengthening this series and making it competitive.
Tim, at the AAC in game 3, what happens with the Dallas Mavs and the Clippers?
I think that Ty Lue saw something in the fourth quarter. I was on that call for the Clippers Mav game 2, and he went defensive style in the fourth. You saw a lot of Terrence Mann, a lot of Patrick Beverley. They got to somehow slow down the Mavericks. Mavs are making 17 threes per game. They're shooting 50% from 3, but they slowed them down in the fourth quarter. There was a 5-minute stretch there where the Mavs only scored 6 points. Look out for the adjustment in this game. And Chris, the spread is saying it all. Wait, Dallas is up 2-0 in the series, and they're dogs at home? Hammer time on the Clippers. I love LA in this spot.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point, Tim, about Dallas's shooting has to regress a little bit. 3-point shooting is up and down. However, there's only an 8% chance that the Clippers, being the favorites that they were, would have lost the first 2 games. I don't think the spread has been adjusted enough. I think the Mavericks should be short favorites at home, so I'm fading the Clips.
Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at the series odds then versus now. You see that on the screen. So, Chris, this information is all there for us. What does it tell us?
I think it tells us that, people still believe in the Clippers a little bit, but I don't know, man. I don't see it, Tim. I don't see it.
Yeah, here's the deal. I picked the Clippers to win the NBA championship. So, Ro P, you ever see Thelma and Louise? I'm sticking my hand out right now. I'm going off the cliff with the Clippers because you pick them in the series. They got to have a bounce-back effort. Must win tonight, but I hope it doesn't end well. And unfortunately for the Clippers, it usually does end well. Ro, what was I thinking?
I don't know. It didn't end well for Thelma and Louise as they drove off that cliff. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Let's take it to Twitter and show you what's going on the Twitter poll because it's been up all. But before we go and break out those brooms and bring in everybody, Tim, Chris, and Vince, because we got to run through these rapid style. Starting with the Bucks and Heat, 3-0 and 140-0. That's the NBA record all time for teams that are down, that are up 3-0, I should say. So, Vince, looking at the Bucks and Heat, what's the approach we're paying attention to in Game 4?
One of the most underrated players in basketball, Chris Middleton. In the age of big threes, he easily gets lost, but 51 and 43 from the field in this series, and pretty much being able to score from all 3 phases, Miami cannot stop him.
Can't stop him. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you. Is there any chance the Heat make history against the favored Bucks?
I don't think so, Ropey. I mean, the Heat have a NBA worst for the playoffs, 94 offensive rating. The Bucks' length just giving them a ton of problems because they can't play 2 of their shooters on the floor at the same time. But when they go big with Bam at the 4, there's not enough shooting, Tim.
Yeah, and I think the line is saying everything. In Game 3, the Bucks were a small favorite, -1, now -5. I think they're looking for the sweep here, and I think this is an important moment in Giannis's career. We've watched superstars overcome those tough times, right? Whether it was Isaiah with the Celtics or MJ with the Pistons, a young Kobe missing shots early in his career against the Jazz, and even LeBron had a tough time getting over that hump and winning key games. 2 years ago, Bucks fall apart against Toronto to go to the finals. Last year, the Heat smack them all around, gentlemen's sweep. And now they're going to go up against the same team that embarrassed them last year in the bubble. And what have they done? They have put it on them. But to Vince's point, great point there, Vince. Chris Middleton, he doesn't make that shot in game one. I think this is a completely different series. Throw the damn towel, Ro P. This thing is over in 4.
Yeah, I think you're getting all the Rocky references that you need. We appreciate that right there. Now let's go to game 2, Nuggets and Blazers. Obviously, the Denver offense is clicking, the Joker being the Joker, Rivers playing like he did at Durham. But, you know, the Blazers right now, maybe the fortunes change. Vince, what do you see happening in game 4?
If I'm Portland, there's one player I'm definitely afraid of at this point because he hasn't gotten off. So he didn't get off in game 3. And that's Michael Porter Jr. He let Austin Rivers and Jokic take the lion's share of the shots. I would not be surprised if he stepped into the limelight. He's the most improved player in the game from a second to third year guy. I would not be surprised if he put up 30 tomorrow.
Okay, Tim, do the Blazers' fortunes change since they are favored?
Hey, the Blazers are dangerous. We all know this. They could score. But the 4 of us, and we throw in Steve Smith, I think we could get 90 points against the Blazers. They don't guard anybody for crying out loud. So they've been struggling on the defensive end. I trust them in game 4 at home. But how great have the Nuggets been, Chris, especially in the first half? Last 2 first halves, they've shot nearly 60% in both halves. This comes down to getting stops for Portland. I do think they go out and win game 4, though.
Yeah, Timmy, I think you mentioned the first half, but I think a key was in that second half of game 2 when Aaron Gordon was switched on to Damian Lillard. That cooled him off just enough. I do expect both teams to regress from three-point range as well. They're both shooting over 40%. You may want to look at the under in game 4, but I think the Nuggets have the edge because they've been able to take Portland's punches and keep on moving, and they're up 2-1, Ropey.
Indeed, that has been an entertaining series. Plenty of offense. Then you have the Sixers and the Wizards, game 3. Now, Joel Embiid showed us all how to celebrate properly after his and one in game 2. Now, Vince, I'm looking at this game 3. Offensively, defensively, the Sixers are on point.
Absolutely. And I think while Joel Embiid is going to get all the attention, and rightfully so, Tobias Harris is leading them in scoring in this series, and he's leading them in shots by a wide margin. That has to continue, not just for this playoff series, but for moving on, because he cannot get lost in the Embiid circle, in the Ben Simmons cyclone. They have to basically feature a guy like that to make sure that they can get through the second round into the finals, whether that's against Brooklyn or against Milwaukee. They're going to need more perimeter shot creation, and Tobias Harris is off to a great start.
Chris, what stands out to you about the scoring margin?
I mean, you look at the scoring margins in all 8 quarters that have been played so far. The Wizards won the first quarter of game 1 by a single point. They haven't won a quarter since. I just don't know how they get it done against Philly when they can't make threes, and they don't even take a lot of threes. So, Timmy, I'm at a loss as for how the Wizards get back in this series.
Yeah, but Philly's been dominant at home. We've seen this story time and time again. I'm going to take the Wizards here and the points in game number 3. Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal at home. We know this. So even role players like Bertans, who didn't make a shot in game number 2, and he had a lot of good looks. Those guys normally make shots at home. I do think that they play with a little sort of rhythm. But this series is important for Philadelphia as far as what they foresee. Because Brooklyn versus the Bucks, that is going to be a dogfight in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Philly does have the easier path, but they got to keep showing me something. Until they show me something on the road, P, I'm going to take the home underdog here in the Wizards.
Nice. Okay, speaking of showing something on the road, we saw Ja Morant, what he did in game 2, 47 points. That was ridiculous. So now you go to Grind City. We got the Jazz and the Grizzlies. So what's going on with this one, Vince? What do you see playing out?
Well, if I'm Utah, I would be worried that Ja Morant got a 40 ball and it was rather easy. Don't be fooled by the fact that it was a comfortable win by Utah, because once they get back home, a lot of things get easier. So they cannot sort of sleep on their laurels, because Ja Morant is relentless, and I didn't see a person on the Utah perimeter capable or even willing to stop him from getting to the lane. This could be a longer series than we think.
Could be a longer series. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that not having Donovan Mitchell in game 1 seems like you wanted to play. Utah said, no, you can't play. And that was kind of a fluky game. Jazz went out there, they shot 25% from 3. And they got caught. Guys got caught all the time. Anderson Silva got caught once in a fight sticking his head out. Like, they just got caught. I don't think this series goes more than 6 games. I think this is wrapped up in 5. And now that Donovan Mitchell is back, the only Jazz player that averages more than 20 points a game, they got their closer. They got their swag back. Memphis stole one, Chris. That's not happening again. I'm laying the points in game number 3.
I don't know, Tim. I think I go with the underdog Grizzlies here. I mean, you look at them and what Ja Morant did, and the Grizzlies coming home now. Remember, Utah was dominant at home during the regular season. They have a big home court advantage. I think this may be another game